demonstrate a couple of things today. We're gonna try to do a little tattoo and show you how real creation started. You want to come up over here? Is it Chris?
Okay.
Yeah, come on over. Got a nice arm to work with. And I'm going to demonstrate how a very small version of the tattoo process that we did. When we did Bruce Dern and Maud Adams, we did what we call the wet process. And what we do is I have the special cosmetic silk screen ink, and we would silk screen the ink onto a piece of visqueen, which is no more than a plastic bag, and so we could see through it, and we could take it while it was still wet and target it and put it on the person. So what we did, we took all these designs off the person and every little time that you'd have convex and concave curves, each one of those little pieces would be a part of the design. And then we had to put this on a silk screen, and then we would silk screen them, and while the ink was still wet with the visqueen, we'd put it on their skin, and we'd match the lines up, and that's the way we put those large pieces on. Now we've even developed it even more where we can take larger pieces, and we could put big pieces on, and that was called the wet process because we did the actual screen ink right to the skin. This is called the dry process. In your student kits, you will get a sheet of tattoo transfers. Now this is all cosmetic ink that we have silk screened onto the paper here. And what happens, we wet the skin with the Real Creations Developer, which is a form of, it's SD40, which is a cosmetic grade perfume alcohol. Because of the Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms Agency, we have to add a little bit of isopropyl to it so it cannot be consumed. And you cannot distill it because those impurities will go with the still. So that's one of those things that you have to deal with. But anyhow, if you're going to do perfume and you've got the perfume in it, apparently the perfume is enough of a denaturing to accommodate that. Now, I've cut one of these designs out of the sheet here, and what we're going to do is put this on her arm. I'm going to turn you a little sideways so we can see what we're doing here. And I'm going to come over here and grab one of these pieces of paper. I'm going to do this out of your student kit so you know how to operate it. Now, this is just a setup towel that you put your equipment on, and then I take a co-wet. Now I have to put a rubber glove on because I deal with alcohol almost every day, and my hands are very sensitive to it now. Over the years of saying I don't like that anymore, so they get dry and cracked. And everybody says to me, well, geez, isn't that drying to the skin? No, not the first time. What's drying to the skin is if you put the tattoos on and you take them off and you put them on and take over and over and over on a short period of time during the day, yeah, that can be drying to the skin, but for this little purpose here, it's not. One of the most important things, bald caps, appliances, whatever you're going to put on the skin that's you want to stay, soap and water is the best cleanser. And I'll tell you why. Because soap literally breaks down any body oils, and it literally removes them. Where alcohol or any other solvent, all it does is it dissolves it thins out the oils, but still leaves a fine coat of oil on the skin. So soap and water literally washes these oils and impurities off. This is, we don't have to worry about this for now because this is a demonstration, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to just wipe her skin down like this. I'm going to turn the pad over and add a little more alcohol. What you want to do is when you apply the alcohol to the skin, you want it to be shiny. So it's not drippy, but it's nice and shiny. Okay, and then I just lay this right here like this. Just gonna go on pretty nice. And you hold it there for about, what, 5, 6, 8 seconds. Make sure that everything is transferred. See, I have a couple little light spots right here. I'll just pick that up right there like that. And then you peel this off, bada bing.
Cool.
It's very important not to skid your hands. Press straight down on the skin and make sure that you don't skid it. Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to take the student palette, the one that you have in your kits, and I'm going to take a brush. We're going to put a little bit of the developer in there. And I'm going to start with red. Now one of the things about the inks, so you understand when you're taking them out of the palette, you can make them very, very dense or you can make them very, very thin. I prefer something like right in the middle. I'll work up to the red. I don't want it too dense. And I'm leaving some spots a little bit open. You'll see why shortly. Now when you go over the lines with the colors, you can actually melt the black lines, so you want to kind of stay away from them. And the most important thing also while you're coloring in is don't dwell in one spot. One spot will it'll start getting heavy, but then you'll start developing a heavy ring around where you're painting, and to the center part of where you're applying the makeup, it won't transfer well at all. So you want to keep moving, and if you have to go back and pick up the colors, then wait till it's dry and then go back in and do it. We'll just give this a little different color of red. Now in your kits, you have the Joe Blasco brushes, all right? I'm using what they call a round barrel brush. Joe Blasco also makes the same kind of brushes, and they're called red sables. When you buy a red sable brush, you'll have a brush that lasts you a lifetime. The nylon brushes will eventually wear out, but red sable are my preference for any kind of work. I have a red sable brush right here. That's from my apprenticeship back in 1963. And it's as good as the day I bought it. I've used it for spirit gum, I've used it for Prozade, I've used it for everything. And they clean up great and they just last forever. It's called a red sable. This is a flat brush, and then these are round barrels. And then they have the shaped ones also. Mr. Blasco also has those in his line. Now what I'm going to do here is, I got the red there. I'm saving the little highlights for the very last part of the tattoo, so I'll show you how that works. So we add just a little bit of color and a little depth to it. Now we're going to be using a little of the green here. And we're going to color the leaves. But do you see how fast I'm working, and I'm not staying in any particular spot for any length of time. We can actually give I'm just going to paint the stem green because most of your roses they do have green stems. Okay, now we're almost coming to some of the highlights. So what I like to do with the flowers especially is just give them a little nicer touch. So I like to kick a little yellow in there, All right. And now you can kind of blend into the red and take any hard lines out, which will turn the red to a little bit of an orange color. And now as you start using these products, you will notice little things about how they dry. I always suggest when you're painting with the inks that you use long, fine, especially for line work. This is the Blasco brush, and this is a killer brush. This works wonderful. You see, I like to use long bristles as opposed to an eyeliner brush. The eyeliner brush, what happens is when you dip it in the alcohol and you get your ink on there, by the time you get over and you start painting the color into the tattoo, you get 2 or 3 strokes and it's dry. The longer bristles hold that alcohol in there a lot longer, so you can get a longer application and you don't have to keep going back and forth and dipping on into your palette. The particular brush I used here, as you can see, is a longer bristle brush, and I could literally do all the colors with one application of the color. Or if I were to do it with a smaller, thinner brush, it's just not going to work as well. Now, after we do this, we have a little product called, this is Real Blue Aqua Sealer. This is a water-based cosmetic acrylic. And what you do is you shake it, and I always take the, I blow all the liquid out after I'm finished, so I have to prime it each time. And when you put this on, the most important thing is you don't sit there and tweak the top. You spray. Close your eyes. That's it. But you press down real hard on the atomizer so you get a fine mist, a very dense spray. Now, because it is water-based, it takes longer to dry. Okay? So I can see little spots here where it's, and I can see a little shine from it still where it's still wet. And after you put this on, it's just about dry. Because it is water, it doesn't dry like alcohol, so you have to help it along. You take a little hair dryer, give it a little shot, it works great. Looking good. Now what I'm going to do is take my imitation sea sponge, and I'm going to take a little bit of makeup. Let's see, is this what I want? Yeah, it looks like that color. They don't make this makeup anymore, and I'm just learning this with my wife because this used to be a great body makeup. And what I'm going to do is go over the top like that. Now what happens is, this is pretty close to her skin color. I'm just doing this real quick for you to see how this works. If you notice, it takes that tattoo and it puts it under the skin. So now you have a layer of skin over the tattoo, and it doesn't look like something that was just painted on. Now before, and you can just take it and wipe down and blend it off. And that's it. It's waterproof, and it's going to stay for the rest of the day. And that's how we do our tattoos. And we didn't have on the tattoo, we didn't have the acrylic spray. It would have lasted a lot longer if we had had that from Maud Adams. But it worked out really good.